Hi, what's up everyone? Today I am bringing you 10 beginner builds that you're going to want to farm for if you're new to the Division 2. The reason I'm making this video is because I see a lot of people reaching level 40 and they're asking what to do next. And I guess the next thing you need to do is grind out some builds. Now these 10 different build types I'm going to show you today will cover every bit of content in the game, from speedruns for the season, heroic content, legendary content, and even raids and the incursion. So I'd say if you are a beginner to the game, you've just reached level 40, this should be your next step. Try and piece these 10 builds together. They're not the perfect builds by any means, and as you learn your play style and you learn the game a little bit more, you're probably going to make tweaks to these and make the builds how you want. But there are certainly 10 build types that you want to farm for on the Division 2. First up, we probably have the most important build that you need in the game, and it is an all red DPS build. If ever you jump in with any raid team or legendary team, incursion team, and you're looking to get help through this content, the number one thing they ask is, do you have a all Red Striker build? So this is probably going to be your priority. It is going to get you through so much content, and it is a must have. The good news is that this build is super easy to put together. Here's mine on screen here. It's 4-piece strikers. You can see I've got the mask, backpack, gloves, and chest piece. I'm taking advantage of the striker backpack talent and the chest talent here. I got the Fox's Prayer knee pads, and I've got a Grupo holster. This is all crit damage and crit chance where I can get it. So I've got crit damage on all the 4 striker pieces. The Fox's Prayer, I've got crit chance and crit damage on the Grupo holster. Now, a lot of people will suggest a chest skirt instead of the Grupo, and that is absolutely fine. If you're running with people with a Coyote's mask, though, there's an argument the Grupo can be a little bit better. The weapons I like to use on this build are weapons like the Ouroboros, the St. Elmo's. You can use any SMG or AR that you like, really. And I love running the secondary weapon as the lefty, which comes with sledgehammer on it, so I can switch to a grenade and this weapon to proc sledge when I need to. This is very handy when I'm running incursions and raids, and it's something I like to do. Specializations that go well with this build are the grenade launcher specialization, the gunner specialization. You can practically put any specialization on that you want, really, to basically gel with whatever playstyle that you have or task at hand. And skill wise, use any skills that you want. I go revive hive, decoy, sometimes I throw an assault on it on. It's entirely up to you, but this is a very good all red DPS build, and as I said, it's going to get you through any content in the game. If you're in our community and you're looking for raid help and incursion help, people will be very happy if you turn up with this build. Some alterations that you may want to do depending on the content, though, is I often remove the chest piece, because what the chest piece does is it basically increases your striker's gamble from 100 to 200 stacks, and it's an argument a lot of the time that the 200 stacks is just a little bit difficult to maintain. You know, you're just not reaching the 200 stacks, and it's kind of pointless having them. So take out the striker chest from time to time, throw on another striker piece elsewhere, and you can change this piece to something else. You can make it a glass cannon striker build, an obliterate striker build. You could do all sorts with it. And on this version of the build of the Grupo holster, you'll see my crit hit chance is low at 34.6%. I've got 186.8% crit hit damage. Again, I run a lot with people with Coyotes, so that crit hit chance is increased through that. You can adjust through mods and other roles if you want that crit hit chance to be at 60% cap or not. You can adjust that yourself. The second build that I'm going to recommend to you is a healer build. A healer is very valuable to any team, whether it's legendary content, raid content, incursion content, so much content. And a lot of people don't like doing it. So if you put a healer build together and you get good at it and you enjoy it, you're going to make yourself very desirable within our community. You will be welcomed into a lot of raid teams, a lot of incursion teams and legendary teams. And you'll have a lot of friends. So I highly recommend putting together a healer build. The most common healer build right now on the game is the Future Initiative healer build, and this has been this way for some time. So you'll want to farm out 4 pieces of Future Initiative. You'll have it on the mask, chest, holster, and knee pads. Just roll repair skills on each of these pieces. They already come with skill tier, and where you can place mods, you'll want to place repair skills. You're using the chest piece from Future Initiative as well for the ground control buff that you get. So ground control on future initiative basically increases all of your team's damage by 15% when they're at full armor. But with the chest piece, you get tactical superiority, which increases that from 15% up to 25% extra damage. It is very, very good, works very well on raids and incursions. So you have those 4 pieces. You then have the BTS U gloves, and the reason you're using these is because of the talent. You're able to destroy your hive every 120 seconds, which will create an overcharge for your whole squad. So they can use overcharge skills for 15 seconds. You can also, and say they are using revive hives and they lose a revive hive, it's going to refresh that for them. It'll also refresh on that overcharge. It's a very handy tactic that we all use with this build. And as for the backpack, you used to use Alp's Summit with skill haste, repair skills, and we used to throw on opportunistic. Opportunistic talent is still good for a healer build, but also perfect overclock is as well, and that comes on the Brazos piece. So either farm yourself an Alp's backpack with repair skills, which is the most important, skill haste as well if you can get it, a repair skill mod on there, and either go for opportunistic or perfect overclock. Opportunistic is going to increase the team damage if you shoot the enemy with a shotgun or sniper rifle, but perfect overclock will basically give allies within 15 meters increased reload speed, and the cooldowns will be quicker as well. So it's very handy. I quite like that. And you could also go as well on top of that, you could go perfect opportunistic instead as well. The weapons you're going to use on your healer build is the Scorpio. This is just obvious, really. It's a weapon that's going to give your team extra damage when you keep on shooting at your target. It offers a lot of enemy debuffs. That's a great weapon to choose. You could also go your secondary lefty again for the sledgehammer talent, as we've already discussed on the other build. It's very handy. Again, throw a grenade, proc sledgehammer. It's a ton of damage. Survivalist is a great specialization for a healer build because it increases your outgoing healing, and the skills you want to run on a healer build is the Restorer Hive, and you want to run the Reinforcer Chem Launcher. Next up, I advise creating a tank build. In fact, I have 2 different tank builds for you. Both have different purposes. We have a hazard protection tank build, but also a protection from elite tank build. So let's get into these. The hazard protection tank build is fantastic for raid content, especially on Iron Horse. There are moments on Iron Horse that you want a lot of hazard protection, 100% in fact, and this build gives you that. It allows you to do certain roles on that raid with ease, and this is how you can piece the hazard protection tank build together. You can go 3-piece Gilligard. So if we have a look at Gilligard for 3 pieces here, we're getting total armor, health, and armor regen. You also want to go Bellstone Armory for 1 piece. This gives you armor regen, and you want 2 pieces of the Cavalier gear set. This will give you 30% hazard protection. Now, as for the rolls on this build, if we have a look at the Gila chest, you want to roll the build to armor regen and hazard protection, and anywhere that can take a mod slot, throw on protection from elites. I'm actually using the chill out mask here. If you've got access to this chill out mask, it takes away one of the attributes but allows you to have an extra mod. Definitely go for that, but if you don't have a chill out mask, then you can't. A normal Gilligard mask will do absolutely fine. You can see I've got hazard protection there with 2 protection from elites, and it's like that across the build. If we go to the Cavalier, I focus on hazard protection, and what you're looking for here is 100% hazard protection across the board. So if we go and have a look at the defensive stats, you'll see here that I have got hazard protection at 94.6. That's just because I haven't optimized everything yet. It'll be 100 once I have, but that's for bleed resistance, blind death resistance, burn resistance, disorient resistance, disrupt resistance, ensnare, and poison. With the Gilligard chest piece, you want to farm for the named version of it called the Pointman. On this, you'll get perfect Vanguard. So when you put out your shield, you're going to be giving your whole team some extra bonus armor based off of your armor cores. You can do that every 25 seconds, which is very good. And on the backpack, just to increase some survivability for yourself, Adrenaline Rush is brilliant. Again, certain roles of the raid will require to be close to some bosses. So this Adrenaline Rush is just going to help yourself stay alive, basically. So they're the 2 talents that I use on this build. As for the specialization, you can go with what you want, really. I'm not sure why I've got Survivalist on this right now, probably for the extra protection from elites. But you could also go the Firewall, because I know the Firewall will give your team extra damage to targets that you're within 10 meters of. And there might be some other perks on other specializations that you might enjoy as well. My weapon setup, there's multiple things you can do with this hazard tank build. The Ravenous is a great exotic that can basically give you more survivability again. You can just keep on proccing the bonus armor on yourself, practically making yourself invincible at times. It's not really needed though, and sometimes I just like using the Mosquito to grab some aggro. So I throw on the Mosquito as my sidearm. I have the Lefty on as well for, again, the Sledgehammer talent if I want to use that. And my secondary, it doesn't really matter. I think I've got a Famos there because on the Williams boss fight on Iron Horse, I'm the one that's shooting the letters, and I just need something that's fast fire rate and auto for that. The skills that I use on this build is obviously the shield to proc Vanguard and to be a tank and give myself a lot more survivability, and a revive 5 in case I need to get myself or my teammates up. The next tank build is probably one of my favorite builds I've created. I put this PFE tank build together a long time ago when Manning National Zoo and Tidal Basin Legendary went onto the PTS. I saw how valuable a tank could be, and I thought, how well can we make a tank build for Legendary that could just be pretty much invincible? And I came up with a PFE tank build. It's changed over the years because of new pieces that have came in, and this is what it looks like now. This build is all about keeping myself alive. It's very, very selfish. I don't really do anything for my team apart from act as a huge decoy, and I can just take aggro from anybody and survive it. If the enemy is an elite, it's simply not killing me, and the only thing I need to worry about is red bars and purple bars. And it works great on legendary content. It's also a great build for the key tank if you're playing the Iron Horse raid. If you use this build on Morozova and you're doing the key tank role, you're just invincible. Really, you are. It's hard to die. I don't think you can. It's that good. So the build's made up of this. We've got the Catharsis Mask. This has incoming repairs, armor regen. I got the protection from elites mod on that. But this is going to drop me a heal every now and then when I take so much damage, and that heal is just helping with the overall survivability. I've got one piece Gilligard, and that's on the backpack. Again, this is rolled to armor regen and explosive resistance. Got protection from elites on that, and adrenaline rush again as a backpack talent. Whenever I'm around enemies, I'm going to get some bonus armor. My chest piece is Lengmo. This is for the explosive resistance of 20%. And I'm again rolling armor regen and explosive resistance with a protection from elites mod on there. And the talent on the chest is unbreakable, so I can repair my armor when my armor goes every 60 seconds. Again, offering insane survivability. And then I've got a Bellstone piece as well. This is for the armor regen. I've got armor regen and explosive resistance rolled. And then for the rest of the pieces, for the holster and the knee pads, you want to roll improvised pieces. The reason for this, it gives you more mod slots. So my improvised holster looks like this: armor, armor regen, explosive resistance, and protection from elites. And the same with my knee pads: armor, armor regen, explosive resistance, and protection from elites. Again, I'm running a survivalist specialization for more protection from elites on the build to try and get it to that cap. I've got the shield on, a reviver hive, and if we have a look at my stats, it should give me my total protection from elites, and it does. It's 73%. I think the cap on protection from elites is 80%. So we're quite close to that. We don't need to go any more. You could certainly drop some if you want to. But protection from elites is absolute vital to this build for what you want to do with it if you're going on to legendary content, or as I said, the key tank role on the Iron Horse raid. Weapon choice is again up to you. You could add the Ravenous for even more bonus armor. You can have the Scorpio to give your team some buffs or debuffs, and you've got the Sledgehammer Lefty. You could even throw the Mosquito on as a sidearm if you wanted to. The choice is yours. Reaching the halfway mark now, and this is a very specific build. You're only ever really going to use it on the Dark Hours raid, I imagine. But it's called the Drone Killer build, and it's a task that is needed to make the final boss of Dark Hours much easier. You'll be in charge of just destroying all of the drones that come out of Razorback, and believe me, they are annoying if you don't have this build. So again, it's a great build to have if you're looking to take on all of the content in this game. There are a couple of ways you can do this build. I've had different variances in the past. The most important thing is that you've got your jammer pulse back quick enough for the time that the drones keep on spawning in, and hardwired enables you to do that. But on top of that, you need a certain amount of skill damage on your build to make sure those drones die. So depending on your watch level, you can just fall short of this. So if you are using a build like this and you're not killing the drones, you need to find a way to increase that skill damage. I think it's 73% skill damage you need to kill them. I want to say, don't quote me, no, it's a number someone told me a while ago, but it's there or thereabouts. So let's have a look at the build. You're going to be having 4-piece hardwired, and the reason for that is feedback loop, which is the 4-piece talent. Basically, whenever you use or cancel a skill, your other skill's cooldown is automatically reduced by 30 seconds while increasing total skill damage and repair by 10 seconds for 20 seconds. And this is what we use to make the jammer pulse come back in time to take out the drones that keep on spawning on Razorback. We got the mask, backpack, knee pads, and holster. You want to roll on skill damage on every single one of these 4 pieces. And with the backpack talent there, it decreases the feedback loop cooldown from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. So you definitely want that backpack. If you run it with the BTSU gloves, you're going to also be able to proc overcharge for your team as well, which is quite handy, especially on the Razorback. If anyone loses the hive, you can just destroy your hive or give them the hive back, give your squad some more survivability. And as for the chest piece, we're going Wyvern for the skill damage. And you can see the skill damage and repair skills rolled on that. I've got a repair skills mod as well. And I've got glass cannon. The reason we're going glass cannon is because all damage you deal is amplified by 25%. All damage you take is amplified by 50. We're more interested about the damage that we're giving because that includes skill damage. Talking about before, trying to get that skill damage up, this is going to help you a lot. And the skills you want to run in your drone killer build is a Restorer Hive and the Jammer Pulse. The Restorer Hive, when you put it down, you can just give some heals to your team, which is why we're going for repair skill mods on the slots that can take mods. And the Jammer Pulse is what you're going to use to destroy the drones. Every single time they spawn, you'll hold this in, the radius will extend, and as it pops off, it will kill all drones, making sure your team can just focus on the other mechanics. I've gone survivalist specialization again for this. I'm guessing this is for the outgoing healing, just to buff those heals to my team. Heading into the second half of this video now and the next 5 builds. So far we've covered builds that are great for legendary and raids and things like that. And you'd think that with the toughest content in the game, the build's good enough for that, would suit easier content, but you would be mistaken. For the easier content or more casual content, there's far better builds to use than the builds that you'd use for the tougher ones, starting with like a speedrun build. Every season on the Division 2, they give us loads of speedrun leagues, and there's a specific build that works very, very well on these, so I'm going to share that with you first. This content is often making you play it on hard, challenging at tops, so it's very easy content and you make your builds different. Now the one I'm showing you now is something that I was just experimenting with. I'm not going to say it's the best speedrun build to use for these speedrun activities, but it is good. It's quite fun. Now I'll just very quickly tell you the one that a lot of people use is 4-piece Hunter's Fury, Memento Backpack, and I think something like Sokolov chest piece with Obliterate, and it works great. You get crit chance, crit damage on it, crit chance as high as you can, crit damage as high as you can, and whatever SMG you like using, like the Lady Death, Chatterbox, or something like that. I want to experiment with the Ninja Bike, and I made a Hunter's Fury Striker build that does work very well, and it looks like this. We've got the Ninja Bike backpack. What this does is it enables you to use one less gear piece or brand piece, and you get the next proc on that for free. So for example here we've got 2-piece Hunter's Fury and I'm getting the 3-piece bonuses because I've got the Ninja Bike. So with the 2-piece Hunter's Fury we get shotgun damage, SMG damage, armor on kill, and health on kill. Both of these are rolled weapon damage and crit damage. You see on the knee pads there as well, weapon damage and crit damage. And then for the other 3 pieces, I have gone Striker. We've got a Striker mask, a Striker chest, Striker holster. Again, all have got crit hit damage on there, and the chest is letting me go up to 200 stacks on the Striker as well to increase my damage immensely. Wherever I can put a mod on there, I'm putting crit hit damage, and I love running the Chatterbox on my speedrun build for these events. You see it's not fully optimized yet, but the incessant chatter talent is brilliant. The aim is when like a spawn comes out, you're going to be pushing the spawns. You'll hit reload with the most amount of enemies around you, and that is going to increase your fire rate by tenfold. It's going to be insane, and you will then keep on refreshing your magazine every single time you kill an enemy. It says 50%, but you kill them that quick, it's just constant. So you run at spawns, you keep this fire rate. Once you got it, you don't reload again, and you can practically go through most of a mission without ever reloading at a stupid rate of fire and absolutely annihilate enemies. And that's what really helps in getting these speedrun missions done and getting some very good times on them. The secondary weapon for this really doesn't matter at all. I've got a lefty here because I haven't really picked a weapon, but if I had to, I'd throw something like an AR on or a rifle just in case you want to take those shots at range, which never really happens if I'm being honest with you. But secondary, whatever you want, sidearm, whatever you want. The gunner specialization is great because it again increases the rate of fire, but also gives you a bit of survivability. One of the reasons we go Hunter's Fury is for the armor and health on kill. The gunner specialization is going to give you another 10% armor on kill. You just want some self-healing with this build because you're going to be pushing enemies at spawn points. You will be taking damage, and the self-healing is going to be very beneficial. I run a revive hive in case I go down. I've got a decoy on this. Skills are entirely up to you. I know a lot of people will run a shield. I think it's the Crusader shield, where you can still use your SMG just to give yourself some more survivability. And you'll see the stats on this with my chatterbox. I'm at 40% crit chance and 143.2% crit damage. If you want max out crit chance, just swap some mods around, swap some rolls around, get the 60%, and just take down the crit damage a little bit. The 7th build I'm going to show you today is something I call the cheese build, but I know a lot of people love it. This is perfect for open world farming when you're solo or in a group of 2 or maybe 3 maximum. The higher the group number, the more HP on the enemies, and it actually makes this a little bit more difficult to use the way it works. We'll discuss it in a few moments. What's great about this build is you can do heroic open world activities and you can fly through them, earning an insane amount of XP very, very quickly. The best way to earn XP in the Division 2 is open world activities and control points and just going around them and round them, and this build allows you to do that very quickly, even with directives if you want to. And here it is. I call it the hotshot cheese build. This is slightly different again to how others do things. I like adding my own spin on stuff. There's different ways to do this, but it does work and it works great. Now, you used to use this build with the White Death named sniper. In a recent update, there's a new sniper that people like using, and the sniper rifle they like to use is the SRS-A1, I believe. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments and let people know what the preferred sniper is. But the roles that you want on this is marksman rifle damage, headshot damage, damage to target out of cover, and the talent you want is determined. This is where the cheese falls into place. So what determined does is after killing an enemy with a headshot, the next shot landed on an enemy will be a guaranteed headshot. You could shoot him in the toe, it's going to count as a headshot. Now, the thing with this talent right now is it's broken, and the devs did fix it, but they had a lot of backlash as people were having fun. So they've left it broken. So what you need to do with this is get the one headshot kill, and then every body shot after that will count as a headshot. It doesn't refresh. It's meant to refresh though. You're meant to go headshot, body, headshot, body. But in this instance, you can just go headshot and then keep on hitting body to get kill after kill after kill. You can even miss shots. If you miss a shot, no bother. Just aim again, hit them, they'll die. The secondary I like to run on this build is just like an assault rifle or something like that, just in case some enemies do get very close. And the busy little bee is what I use as my sidearm. When you start an encounter, you could just proc a few busy little bee shots off, which is just going to increase that damage. Basically, each shot to a different target gives 1 stack, up to 10, and each stack will give you 20% weapon damage increase. So proc a few of them, and then your first sniper shot is going to hit very, very hard, and that works very well with how we make the build. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to start with the chest piece. It's the chain killer named Walker and Harris Co. chest piece. It gives you weapon damage. You want weapon damage on the core attribute, headshot damage and weapon handling on the secondary attributes there, and you want a headshot damage mod. This build's all based around headshot damage. Perfect Headhunter comes with a chain killer. Basically, as you keep on stacking these headshot kills, your damage is just going to go up and up and up. You'll be able to one-shot named enemies. It gets that high. The rest of the build looks like this. You want 4-piece hot shot. We've got the mask with headshot damage and headshot damage mod and weapon damage, and it follows suit with the backpack, the knee pads, and the holster. How hot shot works is you basically get marksman rifle damage, handling, headshot damage, and you get the headache talent. First headshot with an MR will increase the next headshot by 20%. Second consecutive headshot with an MR will give 10% armor. And then the third consecutive headshot will refill the magazine. And then from the fourth headshot forward, agents get all 3. So while you're using this build and you keep on getting these headshots by hitting the body, you're getting all these buffs as well. And it works very, very well. You get the blessed talent on the backpack where agents can miss a headshot before resetting the cycle. So where I said you can miss a headshot before, it didn't really matter. That is true to an extent. You'll still get your kills, but you will lose some of these procs if you miss one. This allows you to miss one shot before you do though, so it's good to have. And where I do things a little bit different is I wear the exotic rugged gloves. So normally people won't even be bothered about the backpack. They'll have a hotshot glove and go a roldy backpack with vigilance. But you've got enough damage on this build, and what I love about the rugged gloves is that you can blind fire, and it's so accurate, even with this sniper. I'm hoping in the clip in the bottom left here, you're seeing some clips of me blind firing with it. So this is real good for survivability, especially if you're playing solo, heroic with directives, enemies are getting up on top of you, and you've got all your buffs. You could just blind fire and they're all going to die very, very quickly while you can't take shots yourself. I love the addition to the build. But yeah, it's up to you how you want to make it. The skills I use is the decoy, the revive 5, and I've got the sharpshooter specialization because that increases my headshot damage and accuracy and things like that. My marksman rifle. We have a look at my stats here. You can see we're not bothered about crits at all, but I've got 285.5% headshot damage on the build. Build number 8 is a very, I'm going to say, specialist build. I've never been able to play this build because I need the patience to practice. I always kill myself with it. So the gameplay might not be great, and the build I've added my own spin on as I have with others. But it's a great build and people love using this. This build is a crowd control build. You can use it in PvP, you can use it in raids, you can use it in legendaries, you can use it in speedruns, you can use it in so much. Countdown, summit, it's game ride. You can use this anywhere, and when you get good at it, again, people love to have you in the squad. It's all about learning the spawn points. It's all about being able to hit those spawn points. And you can clear waves of enemies very, very quickly and be a great support to your squad. If you're running with, say, some DPS players and a healer, you can tackle some tough content very, very quickly with this build. Now, again, I've kind of added my own spin onto this build. I'm not sure if this is how people make it, but this does work. Drop your builds down in the comments if you want to give some more advice. But as I said at the start of the video, this is more about giving you the build type ideas. You need to go out there, play, learn your play style, and create these builds into better builds yourself. But here it is. We've got the Vile Mask. It's an exotic mask. It has status effects, hazard protection. Throw a skill haste mod on there. You get toxic delivery. Basically, status effects also apply a damage over time debuff to the targets, and the total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage. And then you want 4 pieces of Eclipse Protocol. We got the Eclipse Protocol backpack, gloves, chest, and holster. Every single one of these is going to have status effects rolled on as the attribute. Put skill haste in any mod slots that you can. And what Eclipse Protocol does is you get status effect for wearing 2 pieces. 3 pieces gives you skill haste and hazard protection. 4 pieces gives you the indirect transmission talent, where your status effects are now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refresh 50% of the duration. It's very good. And with the backpack, you get the symptom aggravator, which amplifies all damage you deal to status affected targets by 30%. And the chest gives you the talent proliferation, which increases indirect transmission range from 10 meters to 15 meters and refresh percentage from 50% to 75%. I say the chest piece is very important for this build. Backpack, I'm not so sure. So you can play around with that. Maybe there's another backpack with a talent you might want to throw on this build. I'm not so sure. But the final piece that I use is the electric knee pads. It gives you 10% status effects. I've got skill aced and status effects rolled onto that. And that is the build. I run the Scorpio as my main. I've got the secondary as the mechanical animal with future perfection, so I can proc overcharge at times if I get some kills. And the specialization is the survivalist. I think I'm letting my team do extra damage to status affected targets with that specialization, so it works very well. Sidearm don't really matter. I've got incendiary grenades, and you can run this build with any sort of status effect skills that you want. So you've got the riot foam, you got the fire starter, you could go shock trap. Anything that gives off status effects is going to work very well on this build for different activities that you do. The only downside to that status effect build that I find is on legendary content. I don't, unless you're using the riot foam, I'd say that can work very well. But when I run legendary content and I'm thinking I want a status build to crowd control, I want those crowd control skills going out as often as possible. So there is another build that was given to me many years ago by Ready to Die that I used on PlayStation. I transferred it over to PC. And again, the idea of this build is to crowd control again, but rather than focus on spreading those statuses, we're focusing on just being able to throw out our status skills as often as possible. And this build is perfect for legendary content. So let's take a look at this one. You can see right away it looks completely different. It's all gold. We've still got the Scorpio, we've still got the mechanical animal, the survivalist, the incendiary grenade. Again, the sidearm don't matter. You can see that we've got 3 improvised pieces, a Hanayu, an electric, and a golem. So starting with the mask here, got the golem mask. This can be quite a hard farm because you want to farm it with skill haste and status effects already rolled onto the attributes, so you're able to roll out the armor core that it comes with to roll skill tier. You'll throw a skill haste mod on that, and then we'll move to the chest piece. I've got a Hanayu chest piece because it gives me skill haste, and then you want status effects, skill haste, skill tier, a skill haste mod, and the talent you want on your chest is tag team. The last enemy that you damage with will have a skull marked, and then dealing weapon damage to that enemy consumes the mark to reduce active cooldowns by 6 seconds. Cooldown there is 4 seconds, so that can happen every 4 seconds. It's very, very good, and it helps get those skills back pretty much instantly, as if you're using hardwired, as it were. The backpack is electric. This is for the status effects, just like the golem was for the status effects. And again, we're having status effects, skill haste rolled. We've got skill tier, skill ace mod, and I've got creeping death on the backpack. So although we're not focusing so much on spread, there is some spread there, because when you apply a status effect, it is also applied to all enemies within 8 meters of your target, and that can happen every 15 seconds. The rest of the pieces are improvised, and that's because we want to use mod slots. So the improvised gloves, we've got skill tier, skill haste, status effects, a skill haste mod. The knee pads, we've got the same again, skill tier, status effects, skill haste, skill haste mod. And then the improvised holster is the same again. Skill tier, status effects, skill haste, and a skill haste mod. You can see the skill haste on the build is huge, and if you're playing legendary, it's up to you what skills you want to use, but we use a blinder and a jammer. The jammer pulse will count as dealing damage to the enemy for tag team. So you'll jam, that will obviously stop all of the warhounds or mini tanks for a little bit for your team on legendaries, but on top of that, it'll proc the skull that you can then damage to reduce your cooldowns. And then the blinder is what I use for the crowd control. You can see it's 17.9 second cooldown there, but the blind duration is 14.4. The cooldown starts as soon as it goes out. So while I'm throwing out this blinder, I'm marking all targets. I'm blinding the targets for up to 14.4 seconds. It is less for elites, by the way, because elites do have some resistance to it. But then it's pretty much back as soon as I'm ready to use it again once the effect goes out. And with tag team, that's going to bring that cooldown down. So I'll use the blinder, I'll use my jammer, I'll shoot somebody with the skull, I'll use my blinder, I'll use the jammer, and so on and so on. It's a very, very good crowd control build for Legendary. Highly recommend it. And finally, we have reached the end of the video with our 10th recommended build. I couldn't forget a general skill build. Skill builds are all about your skills and skill damage and letting your skills do a lot of the work. Skill builds nowadays in the Division 2 though do still allow you to have a bit of weapon damage as well. So you can still shoot your gun, you can use those skills and you can make them work together. There's some brilliant hybrid builds out there that you can use also. I'm not going to show you a hybrid today though. This build today is pure skill damage and it's a little bit different again to what I think people are doing, but I kind of like it. And if you are a skill build player and you want to use your skills, you're definitely going to want to have a skill build. So here it is. The Technician is a brilliant specialization to use on a skill build. For one, it increases the skill damage or skill haste, whichever you prefer. But for two, it gives you a extra skill tier. This enables you to only throw 5 skill tiers on the build, meaning that you can put a little bit more weapon damage on it if you want to. So that's what I have done here. So we've thrown on the Technician. I've got the Capacitor as my main. This is an exotic assault rifle you can get from the summit. Damage target out of cover on it, and shooting enemies will build stacks to a cap of 40. Each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. After 5 seconds, stacks will decay, but for each skill tier on your build, you're also going to get 7.5% weapon damage. So it works very well. Secondary is the Mechanical Animal, again with future perfection, so I can proc overcharge with a kill if I want to every now and then. Sidearm don't really matter, I haven't given much thought to that. And the build looks like this. We have a Brazos mask. So because of the Technician specialization, what I've done here is I've farmed for one of these with skill haste and skill damage on, thrown a skill ace mod on it, and I've thrown weapon damage on it. So I've still got 6 skill tiers, but I had that 1-3 that I could use for the weapon damage. Brazos comes with skill haste for 1 piece and skill tier for 2 piece. My second Brazos piece is on the holster. I go with the named Picaro's holster. 1, so we get the extra skill tier again, but 2, because we've got weapon damage as an attribute. So again, 15% weapon damage. I've got 1 rolled with skill damage, and I've rolled skill tier onto this. Now you'll notice I've also gained another skill tier here, which enabled me to again throw some weapon damage on another piece. So I've done that with my Empress International knee pads. This has skill haste and skill damage rolled onto it. I had to farm for that to drop like that because I wanted to roll weapon damage on it. So I've currently got 2 red cores and I've still got the 6 skill tiers, which means my capacitor is still picking up from those skill tiers as well to increase the damage even more. Now the damage isn't great, but it is noticeable. You can use your gun and kill enemies, as I'm hoping you can see in the footage there, which is heroic content as well. So we've got 3-piece Empress on the build. That gives you skill health, skill damage, and skill efficiency, which basically is skill health, skill damage, skill haste a lot. It's a brilliant brand set for skill builds. The other Empress piece is on the gloves, which is skill haste and skill damage rolled as the attributes. And then on the backpack, which again is skill haste, skill damage as the attributes. And a skill haste mod there also. The backpack talent that I like is Combined Arms, where shooting an enemy will increase total skill damage by 20% for 3 seconds. As it's a build that I am going to be using my gun, as we just discussed, with all the extra weapon damage on it, you're going to be constantly be proccing this 25%. That 3 seconds refreshes every bullet. So as long as you keep on shooting, you have this buff all of the time, which is really good. There is a shout for the Waveform exotic holster. You could bring that in here and switch a few things around. But the way I made the build with the extra weapon damage, I really wanted to use the Picaro's holster. Finally, we've got the chest piece. I've gone for a Wyvern chest piece because it gives you skill damage, has skill tier on it, skill haste, skill damage, and a skill haste mod. And glass cannon. All damage I deal is amplified by 25%. All damage I take is amplified by 50%. But it works very well on skill builds because this is obviously increasing your skill damage by 25% as well, which gives you a tremendous amount of skill damage. And with skills, You can sit behind cover a lot, so I feel like you can defend yourself a lot. You don't need to worry so much about the incoming damage. You can play it smart, and I think it's worth the risk because you're getting that extra weapon damage again, so you can also do well with shooting your targets, not just your skills. I really like running it this way. There's another talent that you can use. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Empathic Resolve's in my head, but I think that might be the healing one. There is another chest talent that kind of works similar to giving your skills extra damage. It's not quite as good as Glass Cannon in my opinion. If you don't like Glass Cannon, there's other talents that you can check out. And the skills are entirely up to you really. I love using the Assault Turret and the Striker Drone. I let them do most of my work while I shoot also. I have used builds like this on legendary content, heroic content. I've used it on open world content. It can be very, very fun to use. And if you do get into these builds, you'll learn your positioning and all things like that. And you can annihilate a lot of content. And there we have it. 10 builds for beginners on the Division 2. I hope this video has been helpful. Again, I see a lot of people asking what I do at level 40. There's 10 builds for you to go and farm and try out. You'll be ready for all sorts of content on the game, and you'll also be able to adjust the builds to your liking. There's so many ways you can make these types of builds. The Division 2 is so fun for that. Experiment, try them out for yourself. Let me know what you think. And if you want to give advice to people down in the video comments, if you're watching this and you're an experienced player, please go ahead. People reading through will appreciate all the advice that you can give. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe for more content. Until the next time, take care and peace out.